everyone, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast.
Woo!
Hello again. So, Generator, would you like to remind everyone what our word is this week?
The word of the week is vegetation.
Vegetation, yeah.
Yeah. Alright. What do you think the definition that Google gives us for vegetation is?
Any collection of plants or plant material, either growing or collected for display.
You're getting really good at this.
Oh, nice.
Plants considered collectively, especially those found in a particular area or habitat, which is a noun. There's also apparently the act or process of vegetating.
Okay.
And then apparently in medicine, an abnormal growth on or in the body. I don't think we use that much anymore.
Yeah, but, okay.
But I think I have heard that.
We'll allow it.
We'll allow it. I have been vegetating lately. That one is the vibe. This sentence is at least a sentence.
Okay, better than last time.
Yeah. The chalk cliffs are mainly sheer with little vegetation.
All right, not really highlighting the word vegetation in that one.
Yeah.
But okay.
So, saying there's no plant life there, but, not defining what the word is. But
I mean, it's not supposed to define it. It's supposed to just use it.
Use it in a sentence, but,
I would have said something like, the vegetation and undergrowth was so dense. I don't know.
That gives you, a visual of, what it could be if you don't know what the word vegetation is.
Yeah,
saying
this is, the lack of it.
Yeah, there's no vegetation there. Oh, okay. I'm going to continue to nitpick Google's choices of words for the rest of my life, and it's fine.
That's fine.
All right. So, vegetation. I have brought the 2008 Pixar animation WALL-E.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of a thinker one.
Well, so it actually goes with the vegetate and then the plant at the end.
Well, no, I understand. Just, the movie itself. It's not my favorite, we'll say that.
Okay, that's fair.
But go on.
So I have a lot of problems with this movie, too.
Okay.
But it was the first thing that came to mind in playing word association, and then I was like, I'll just complain about my problems
No, it
with
makes
this
sense.
movie.
Let's hear your complaints. Let's hear this roast.
The roast of WALL-E. Basically, it's set in the 22nd century, and it makes fun of, it highlights, consumerism, corporate greed, and then just the general lack of care that the people on Earth have done to the environment. And so there's a company that I think is supposed to be Walmart or any the big major companies, but it's called By and Large, or BNL, is basically in charge of everything and has evacuated humanity on a giant space starliner. And theoretically, it's implied that there's multiple of them. We got most of humanity off of it, but then we don't know what happened to the other starliners. I suspect that a bunch of people just died on Earth, and, some of the rich and, most important, or, air quotes, most important people, who had influence, got themselves on the starliner. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing, just what, how did these people get up on the starliner? But they were supposed to only be up there for a short period of time. They 10, 15 years or something like that. Well, the By and Large was cleaning up Earth. And so they had the Waste Allocation Load Lifter Earth class, or WALL-E, which were basically a bunch of robots to go around and pick up trash and then turn it into a city. The whole thought process wasn't super great, because basically we see the last WALL-E, so all the other WALL-Es have over the last, I think it's 700 years or so, have just slowly been shutting down. They work on solar power, but WALL-E goes by and is picking up and compacting trash and then building up little things, and he goes by the corpses of other WALL-Es.
Oh no! Wait, doesn't he use them as his own spare parts sometimes?
Yeah. He was going by and his eye was all effed up, and he's I'll just take that from you, or his little feet pedal things, or his treads on his wheels. Yeah, so basically he's stealing parts from the looting corpses and repairing himself. He's actually very crafty. He's also become sentient.
Yeah.
And he collects things. And he has like a little, like a trailer park situation that he's basically built up himself. And he's got like all of his like favorite Chinese. And then I think it's Hello Dolly that he watches, or it's some musical that he watches.
Like a really old one.
But yeah.
Like older than the Pixar movie itself, right?
Yeah. It's a really old musical. And he watches it all the time, and then, it's Hello Dolly, on a VHS, and then, like, he likes to pretend he has a hat, and then he'll, like, dance and spin with it, and, like...
Okay, I will say, like, Wally's little setup, if it was just, like, a short, like, I would vibe with that.
That whole bit is my favorite part, is just, like, him cleaning up the planet, and then just having all those little trinkets, and being a cute little robot with a personality, totally fine. Like, he plays with a Rubik's Cube, he's got, like, a light bulb, that he's trying to figure out how it works, and he's, like, depressed that he can't get it to turn on. I think he plays with, like, a match, and then he accidentally sets himself on fire. Like, it's a bunch of cute little moments that, like, set up Wally as, like, this is clearly the villain. He's kind of a, like...
You mean hero?
Or, he's clearly the hero. And then it sets him up with, like, just, like, endearing cinnamon roll characteristics. And then one day, while he's collecting trash, he finds something he hasn't seen before, which is a little plant. And it's, like... little, like, two-leafed, really sad-looking plant. But he, like, scoops it up and, like, puts it in a boot with some dirt, and then he's gonna water it and take care of it. And he, when he goes home, he sees, like, this red dot on his wall, and it turns out that it's a tracking laser of a ship. And so Wally, like, hides himself underground, and then, like, this big ship comes down and, like, kind of messes up the, like, area and, like, knocks over a bunch of his stuff. And then Eve, or EVE,
Isn't it Eva?
Eva. He calls her Eva, but extraterrestrial vegetation evaluator is Eve. And he can't say Eve, so he calls her Eva. And... she comes down because I think there might be more of the robots, but she specifically interacts with him and goes and, like, is scanning for, has the Earth healed yet? And then they're supposed to report back to the, I think it's called the Axiom, the big interstellar spaceship that's up, waiting to say, yes, it's okay to come back to the planet. And so Wally is immediately smitten by how, like, sleek and otherworldly she looks. And there's, like, a whole, like, he's, like, a little obsessed with her. And then so he's, like, stalking her like a creeper. And this is one of my first issues with Wally, is he's, like, literally stalking this robot. And we have definitely, like, coded Wally as male and Eve as female. And, like, there's just some, like, mild stalking situations going on. And then Eve is not super impressed with him, but, like, starts to connect with him, and I guess finds him a little bit endearing because he's, like, trying to show her things around. And at first she tries to shoot him with a gun.
Oh no!
Because she's got, like, gun hands, which are, like, rad AF. And then she keeps telling him that she's got a directive that she needs to follow, and that she needs to, but she won't, like, explain what it is. A cute scene is their immediate, like, interaction of him being like, Wally, and her being like, Eve. So they have, like, this cute, like, talking to each other. Wally eventually brings her back to his little trailer park, and he teaches her how to dance with the hat.
Oh my god.
It's a cute moment.
That's so cute.
He's such a goober. And then he is showing her all of his favorite things. And, like, for a little while, she's not impressed because he'll, like, show her the lighter. And then she, like, flicks her hand and, like, she's got a lighter on her hand. And she's like, okay. And then he's like, wait. And then he shows her the plant. And then she, like, scans the plant and, like, grabs it, shoves it into her body, and then immediately shuts down.
Oh, no.
And then she's sending off, like, a homing beacon, like, I found a plant. Like, come pick me up. And then Wally does not understand what just happened and then panics and is like, crap, maybe she needs to charge. So he, like, pulls her out. He ties a string of like Christmas lights around her and like pulls her, because she's a floating robot, and pulls her out into the sun, and then he sits there and like solar charges with her, but like he wakes up in the morning and she's still like not functioning. So then he just kind of takes her on a bunch of dates, even though she's not aware or conscious, and it's just another one of those like, what is happening? This is odd. So he keeps, like, having her do stuff with him and keeps showing her things, like, hoping that maybe something will spark her and get her reactivated. But nothing does. At some point, the ship that came down comes back for her and picks her up, and then Wally manages to sneak onto the ship with her. But then gets separated because she gets like picked up by like a thing, and he's not Eve shaped, so he goes.
No, he's box shaped.
He's box shaped. So she gets taken to a group. I think they're like cleaning robots, and then there's the little robot Mo, who has like his hands are like scrubbers, and he's like very angry, and he basically follows Wally around because Wally's just covered in dirt and grime, and so like. Mo is like stuck to this line of like cleaning, and because everything goes on this track, and then Wally goes off the track, and Mo's looking at it, and he can't. His need,
poor little brain.
His need to clean is greater than his will to like follow the path, and so he has like this whole little moment of like, I'm gonna step off the path, like I'm gonna do it, and then he does, and then he doesn't die, and he's like, and then he just goes. And he goes and cleans. And so basically he like follows Wally around with all of his little tracks. Then we kind of go away from Wally and Eve and that adventure, and then we get to the less interesting plot, which is
agreed.
I think it's John is his name. It's some human. Basically, the rampant consumerism and all that is still pushed on the Axiom, even though that's what caused the downfall of humanity. But everyone is on these like hover chairs. Everyone's gotten really fat and like doesn't really move around anymore. And they all eat like these like big gulp type cups. And they're sipping stuff. And the other thing is like, where did they get the food? And my belief is that the food is people, because like there's no way that they had 700 years worth of food when they
couldn't grow it.
They weren't. They thought it was going to be a 10 to 15 year thing.
I mean, they still probably want to be growing food,
but then
like the Martian to bring a different piece of media in here. He grew food on Mars. Why can't they grow food on their space thing?
He did grow potatoes. But, like, they just, like, no one, like, it's all run by robots. No one actually does anything. Like, they're all, like, raised by robots. They start in hover chairs. Like, it doesn't seem like a thing that they would do. And maybe the robots are able to do a little bit, like, with some of the waste and stuff and turn that into, like, seeds and propagate. But I don't believe that that's enough. And there's no, like, meat or, like, livestock or anything, and they don't address it, and I need to know where the food comes from.
Okay.
So, I've watched Soylent Green, and I'm convinced it's people. So, John falls off of his hover chair, because I think Wally bumps into it or something. And, like,
oh, no.
That's, like, the whole, like, inciting incident to him, like, realizing that there's life outside of just the screen in front of him and just being lazy, I guess. And he, like, stands up and realizes he has a hard time walking because his bone structure has decreased because of genetics, and also that he's literally never walked in his life, so why would he have a developed bone structure? And then he accidentally breaks a computer screen of Mary. I think it's literally John and Mary, which is just its own thing. But, they start walking around and see the world, and then they're, like, amazed by the pool. And they're like, did you know we had a pool? Like, there's just, like, the dialogue between them is not great. And, like, I get...
Why wouldn't they know they had a pool?
Because they've been always in front of their screens. Like, they literally just get...
Is, like, no one using the pool?
No one. There's no one using the pool.
Oh,
There's no
I see. Okay.
Everyone's stuck to the chairs.
So it's not like a thing, like people go hang out at the pool.
Okay. They used to, like when they started, I'm sure that people were hanging out at the pool and all that stuff, but like as time went on, they got more and more attached to just the screen because like they realized like we're not leaving space, and then the computers just took over and more. And I think it's partially because they were trying to distract people from the fact that we haven't left back for Earth, because Earth is supposed to be fixed in a short period of time. And then the captain of the ship, who somehow accidentally discovers, it's because, so Eve comes back with the plant and then presents the plant to him, and he's like, hey, look, and there's like a wheel. It's supposed to be like an evil AI, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's also the thing that helps like the autopilot of the ship.
Isn't it called autopilot?
Maybe it is autopilot. I think it's auto. Yeah. And so the autopilot of the ship, and then he sees the plant, and then he's trying to stop the captain from seeing the plant that Eve has. And the captain's like, no, I am in charge. Go over there. I'm gonna look at that. And he's like, oh, there's a plant back. So he has it like scanned, and it says like vegetation, and it's plant life, and blah, blah. And so he goes, hey, we can go back. And so he goes and like dusts off an old manual, like when an Eve robot comes back, open this book. And then he's like, initiate this. And then Otto kind of goes nuts and is like, no, we can't do this. And he's like, just because we have this one plant doesn't mean we have proof of stuff. And then like takes the plant.
I mean, true.
Like, it's a valid point. Just one plant that has been ripped off of the planet that maybe was the start of something that Wally doesn't know how to take care of and stuck in a boot. Was that going to be it? I don't know.
You took his wee little Monstera houseplant that he was going to keep for himself and said, yes, we can come back and have sustainable agriculture.
And the one spider plant is going to keep everything alive. And then, so, Otto is like trying to destroy the plant, and he's like, no, what are you doing? And then, so Otto has to show the image of the guy who was in charge of the like whole, by and large, like we're cleaning up, who gives like there's too much greenhouse gases, everything's carbon dioxide, it's not sustainable, everyone has to live with like gas masks and stuff, and like we're probably gonna die, so don't come back. And like he literally tells Otto that you can override the captain and that we're not coming back. And then the captain realizes, oh crap, I'm in trouble, because Otto is technically like following orders. So then he basically like traps the captain, and the captain has to like fight him. So basically the captain is actually a more interesting character than what's going on with John and Mary, where he's actually like, wait, no, like look at all this stuff. This is really cool, because like he got to see like what Earth was like, and there's like all these musicals and all this culture, and he was like learning about like just, I think dance was like the main one that they kept coming to, like just music and dance and performing arts, and like look at all these cool things that people used to do, and we could go back to that. And so then he's like, no, we're gonna get out, and so he has to fight Otto to override, and he like I think Otto calls a mutiny or something, and like it becomes like a whole shenanigan.
Oh no.
But Eve. We go to Eve, and she has a moment where she, because Otto sends Wally to the trash compactors, and there's like big Wally machines, like they're huge.
Oh no!
I think they're like Wall A's or something, but like they're big machines that like Wally goes by, and then Wally gets evicted out the airlock because Otto doesn't want him on the plant or on the ship, and Eve has to go rescue him. And Eve had to go through, like, her memory banks, and so she can see what Wally had been doing, which was, like, taking her on the weird, creepy dates. But apparently she finds this endearing, so then she goes out in space and then goes and rescues him. And there's the cute scene, kind of, with the fire extinguisher, where Wally had grabbed onto a fire extinguisher, and then he's, like, shooting himself through space with the fire extinguisher, which I don't know if that works. I don't know space that well in that capacity, but the pressure, I guess, like, maybe it would push you in a direction. Unclear.
I mean, ships have, like, propeller or propellant, don't they?
Right. And then I don't know how you fly around once you're in space. It's probably, like, aggressive combustion and stuff, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
I don't know.
I've never been to space. I wouldn't know. Anyway, they get back on the planet, or on the Axiom, after some dancing around in space with fire extinguishers. And they go up to try to get to the captain. And through a series of shenanigans, they end up electrocuting him, I think.
The captain?
No, the autopilot.
Okay.
They help the captain, sneak on, because I think he pulls, like, a Uno reverse where he's like, yeah, no, you're totally right, Otto. We should just keep staying here. I'm so sorry, like, that kind of stuff. And because Otto's an AI and doesn't understand, like, personality, he's like, all right, cool, and they, like, electrocute him. And then, which doesn't seem like the greatest plan, because, like, he was the autopilot for, like, all the life support systems and stuff, and I'm pretty sure this captain did not know how to run those machines.
There's a book somewhere.
There's a book somewhere, but hopefully we get to it before everyone suffocates. But it's fine. And then, basically, we go towards the end where they get back to, the planet, so, they help the captain figure out how to fly the planet back to Earth, because they also don't know where Earth is, because Axiom kind of just got parked in, like, a solar system and was just vibing there. And...
As you do.
As you do. But you get... they, like, hyper jump and they, like, hand wave space shenanigans and, like, oh, look, here we are. And then they get back to Earth, and then Wally has... And the other robots, so, like, Mo and stuff. And Mo, like, sees the dirt on the ground on Earth and is like, I have so much to clean. And he just, like, goes off on, like, a cleaning tirade with all the other robots.
Oh my gosh.
And then, even Wally have, like, a scene where, like, they kiss, kind of? I don't know how they are holding hands and they, like, lean in.
They
and
run into each other.
Yeah, right?
With their face parts.
Robots don't really, like, neither of them have, like, a mouth, but it's fine. They, like, lean in like they're gonna have a kiss or whatever. And, like, visually, like, this is what's happening. And then over the end credits, it's, like, the captain and Mary and John are, like, teaching people how to plant things. I don't know.
How do they know?
There's a book somewhere. And then, like, it's, like, the earth is healing with, rivers and streams and stuff. But, like, I get what it's trying to say, and it's, like, look away from your screen and, like, detach and be part of nature and then take care of Earth. But, like, it's not well thought out. And also, like, we're not going to get back... Like, if the planet's that destroyed, we're not going to get back to the things that people are going to want to get back to that quickly. And also, food takes a while to grow.
Well, apparently they're just eating people, so it doesn't matter.
Hopefully there's stuff on the Axiom that will sustain people until we can actually grow out real livestock. And then hopefully there's animals somewhere on this planet. But...
Doubtful.
Who knows? And that's my mixed review of WALL-E.
All right. I'm glad we are of the same opinion of it.
Like, there's really cute scenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's too long, and it tried really hard to nail home a point. And you're like, you could have done this without, like, driving it down your throat. Like, that's how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm. I think they also had too many subplots.
I think so, too. Yeah. The captain and Otto's battle, and then having Eve and Wally, and then just cutting out most of Mary and John's things probably would have been fine. Or you could have taken John's part of the story of, like, realizing we have a pool and put that into the captain's story and have him walk around and be like, holy shit, we have a pool. And you're like, oh, the captain doesn't know this. Like, that would have been
better.
It would have been more interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of potential for it and some really cute moments. And Wally is an adorable cinnamon roll, but also...
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, good review.
That is Wally.
Excellent.
All right. Do you have a quote for me?
I sure do. It's not a good one. I feel like my quotes never are, though. Sometimes.
Sometimes they're pretty solid.
Other times, it's like, I have no idea. At least this one actually has the word in it, though.
That's okay.
Last time I brought a quote, it didn't. So.
As long as it sticks with the vibe, I'm cool with it.
All right. Here we go. Going up that river was like traveling back to the earliest beginnings of the world when vegetation rioted on the earth and big trees were kings. An empty stream, a great silence, an impenetrable forest. The air was warm, thick, heavy, sluggish. There was no joy in the brilliance of sunshine.
Oh, God. I feel like I read this book in high school.
I definitely read it in high school.
This feels like something that was depressing in high school. Okay, I'll think about that. And listener, if you know, feel free to let us know what the depressing quote is from high school. We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Nerd of the Week or hashtag Nerd of the Week or NOTWP. Or TikTok is Vampire Sheep. Sheep is spelled with 3s instead of E's.
Find us.
Find us. Interact. We'd love to say hi.
That's a challenge. Find us.
Find us. Find me, I dare you. You have 10 seconds.
Have you done it? Have you done it now?
Have you told us you found us?
If you don't tell us, we don't think you have.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think it's been 10 seconds.
Show your work.
All right. So, anyway, I'll tell you about my thing.
All right, let's do it.
Let me pull it out of my bag.
Oh, man.
Dun, 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 dun,
Is this another book I read in high school?
No.
Oh, that makes sense. All right.
All right. For those listening at home, because this is audio media, not visual, I have just procured from my bag Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Oh, yeah.
So I read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland this morning, but I'm also going to try and talk a little bit about Through the Looking Glass. But both of these kind of involve some vegetation.
They do. Some wild vegetation.
Yeah, there's lots of vegetation in here. So, of course, there's a bunch of different renditions of Alice in movie-verse.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be talking about the book, though.
Okay.
So I didn't have time to watch the Disney movie, and I think I'm going to save Tim Burton Alice for something else.
Tim Burton Alice is good.
But it's different.
It is different.
It is not Alice in Wonderland. It's just inspired by...
I've only ever seen, like, the Disney movie, and, like, I haven't actually read the book. Like, I have the, like, vague plot points because of all the media that references it, but I have not actually gone through the books.
Yeah. They're different, I would say.
I mean, wasn't it, like, a cocaine-induced fever dream or something?
I don't know if it was that intense. It's definitely supposed to be, like, depicting a dream, though.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
basically, at the very beginning, I'll just start telling you about it now.
Sounds good.
So at the very beginning, Alice is sitting by a riverbank with her sister, and her sister's been, like, reading, and it's a really hot day, and Alice is really little, like, I think she's 6 or 7 or something, like, a very young little girl, and she's just real sleepy, and she starts thinking about, like, you know how your mind kind of, like, goes in circles as you're, like, in that half-awake, half-asleep state?
Yeah, and it gets, like, weirder and weirder the closer you get to dreams.
And she's, like, thinking about her cat, whose name is Dinah, and then she starts thinking about, like, daisy chains that she could be making, and then she sees a white rabbit, and she says she, like, gets up with a start, and she sees the rabbit, and he, like, winks at her, and then she was more surprised that he pulls out a pocket watch from his waistcoat, which it seems like the way it's written, it's like these things are, like, materializing as she's realizing them, kind of.
Yeah.
So that's when you first kind of realize, like, oh, she is actually asleep. This is not really happening. But for the sake of description, it is really happening. So she wants to figure out what this rabbit is doing, because he's the most interesting thing that's happened to her all day. And so she follows him through the underbrush. They don't say through the vegetation, but it's vegetation.
It's vegetation.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
So she finds this hole that she kind of starts crawling into, and then suddenly has this really steep drop down.
Yep, okay.
And she isn't sure how far she's falling or how fast she's falling, but there's all these things that are, like, flying around her. In the book, it's not in the movie, but in the book, she comes across a jar of, like, orange marmalade, and she opens it hoping that there would be some, and was disappointed that there was none.
I don't know that I would trust flying marmalade down a rabbit hole, but you do you, Yella.
She wanted it. And then, in the book, it says she didn't just want to let go of the jar for fear of killing someone below, even though she herself is falling, and probably much more likely to kill someone if she were to fall. But anyway.
I think we're establishing Alice's personality.
Yes. So anyway, she's, like, really paranoid about, like, what's going to happen to this jar. And as she's apparently falling past a cupboard, she's able to, like, quickly throw the marmalade in there.
Is the cupboard falling? Or does
Everything's falling, but apparently at different rates.
Okay, the cupboard falling, though, is less of an issue about killing someone below than the jar.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So Alice finally gets rid of the jar of marmalade. All is well.
All right, cool.
She herself ends up at the bottom of the hole finally, And there's apparently a pile of sticks and branches down there that she safely lands on and is not damaged in the slightest.
I feel like sticks and branches would hurt to land on, but all right.
Well, she's okay.
All right.
And also, nothing else falls on top of her. So all the things that she passed that apparently were also falling don't arrive at the bottom.
Fair enough.
I don't know.
Fair enough. I mean, if they're falling at different rates and she, like, walks away, she'll probably be fine.
Yeah. And luckily, she does walk away. She sees the white rabbit going down a hallway. Mm-hmm. She goes down it as well, and it's described as, like, being very darkly lit, and there's doors, like, all lining it, and they're all locked, which I picture as kind of like a creepy hotel kind of hallway, where it's like, this is scary.
This is concerning. This hotel needs a lot of updates.
So she walks down that hallway, and then she loses the white rabbit, unfortunately. But she's coming to kind of like this little alcove, and there's a little curtain that she draws back, and there's this tiny little door that's only like a foot high, and she looks through it, and there's this beautiful garden, and she's like, I desire nothing more than to go into that garden. That is the place for me.
As a plant girl myself, I understand.
But unfortunately, she describes that the door is too small for even her head, and even if her head did fit through, it'd be sorely deplete without its shoulders. Right. So she needs to figure out a plan here.
That's a good phrasing.
So she wanders around the room a little bit more, and suddenly there's a glass table that she hadn't noticed before. And on top of the glass table is, well, first off, this was a key. So this is how she was able to get in the door. I'm sorry, I skipped that.
Okay.
So she got into the door with the key, blah, blah, blah. She then gets back to the table, and there's a little thing that says, drink me.
Yep, okay.
And she looks at it, and she says she very carefully inspects it to make sure it doesn't say poison. Because,
you know, you would label it as poison. The poison for Cusco.
Yeah,
Cusco's poison.
Absolutely. Another good one. We could have brought that for Vegetation. There's a lot of vegetation in that movie. Some other time. So she, in her little internal dialogue, is she's read a great many stories where if you drink poison, you don't last long afterwards. So she wanted to be very sure that this was not poison. And in fact, it was not labeled as such, so she felt comfortable finally drinking it, and she does. And then she shrinks immediately, very, very small. And she runs back to the door, but unfortunately it's closed again.
Oh no.
And the key
is way too big.
Up on top of the table.
Oh no.
She can't reach it.
Uh-huh.
And so she's really distraught. It's very sad. And she wanders around for a little bit, and then she finds a piece of cake. And she says, well, surely this must make me bigger. That's definitely her line of reasoning right away.
Absolute logic.
So she eats the cake, and she does in fact get bigger, but it's too big.
Yes.
She's distraught at how big she is now. She's bigger than she ever was before. The white rabbit at this point runs by, and she says, excuse me, sir, might you help me? And he's scared out of his mind and runs away.
Giant lady.
Apparently he drops his fan, which she picks up, and there's some magical property imbued in the fan that when she waves it on herself, she starts shrinking. However, this whole time, she was so sad that the rabbit ran away, and she doesn't know how she's going to get home or how she's going to get through the door, because really that's her main goal right now. And so she starts crying, and her tears just puddle up, and she makes this puddle, and as she's getting smaller with this fan, suddenly it's this ocean.
Oh, good.
And
she's going to drown in her own tears.
Yes, she's
cool.
so small.
That is the most emo way to go out.
She says, oh no, if only I had someone to help me and get me to safety. Just then, luckily, a mouse swims by.
Oh, okay.
And she calls out, hello, Mr. Mouse? And he doesn't respond. And she says, oh, well, of course, he must be a French mouse.
Naturally.
Yes. And she says, it's something in French, like, excusez-moi, Monsieur Mouse. And asks something about, have you seen the cat? In French. Now, the mouse doesn't
the one random phrase that you know in a different language.
Yeah, well, in the book it says something like, it was the one thing she remembered from her French lesson that day.
that feels like the random sentence that they make you ask.
So she says about the cat to the mouse, and he is terrified. He's like, I don't want anything to do with the mice. At this point, I guess speaking English to her.
Oh, okay.
Instead of French.
What a jerk. He's just a mean mouse.
Yeah, he is a mean mouse. He really is. And she's like, oh no, but not all cats are mean. You should meet my cat Dinah. She's the sweetest little thing. And
justice for Dinah.
Yeah. Good cat. You never meet the cat actually in the book, but good cat, I would say. And Alice is just going on about how sweet he is. And then like, oh, and he's ever so good at catching mice in the barn. And then the mouse is like, oh, no, I'm leaving.
Nuts, I'm out.
He pedals away. And she's like, no, I'm sorry. I won't bring it up again. Do you perhaps like dogs? And the mouse, like, comes back, like, sure, maybe. And she's like, oh, well, there's this lovely terrier that lives up the road, and sometimes he comes and plays, and he's the sweetest little thing, and the farmer loves him, but because he's so good at catching rats, and rats are like mice, and so the mouse, again, is like, oh, no, not any of this, no.
I mean, I can't blame, like, even if the mouse is a jerk, I can't blame him for being like, you're just describing things that kill me.
Yeah, I get it. And he's got stuff to do, so...
Busy mouse.
He is. And she's described, like, all during this, a bunch of other animals have arrived. Like, there's a parrot and a bunny and apparently a dodo bird.
Okay.
Which I looked up when dodo birds went extinct, and it was in, like, 1690. This book was written in the 1800s.
Okay.
So she herself has never seen a dodo bird.
Right. So it's probably her imagination of what a dodo bird might look like. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
But he plays a very prevalent part in this next bit of the story.
Fair enough.
So basically, all these animals collectively, like, wash up on the shore with her. And
from her tears?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
we're still in the tear ocean. Got
it. And we're all still very small. And they're all debating in a circle of, like, we're so wet right now. How are we going to get dry? And the mouse says, wait, I know the driest thing. And he starts reciting the history of William the Conqueror.
All right, that's fair.
And he looks at Alice and he's like, how dry is this, my dear? And she says... Well, I'm still very wet right now.
I appreciate the effort.
And at that point, the dodo says, you know what? What's even more dry is a caucus race. Which I think that's probably like in Alice's little kid brain, a caucus race. Like she thinks an athletic activity rather than like a political thing.
Right.
So... she describes the rules as, like, there really are none. There's a circle marked out, but everyone starts running whenever they wish and stops running whenever they wish as well.
That feels like a direct commentary on actual caucus races.
Exactly. And then eventually the dodo says, okay, stop. We're done now. The race is finished. And the mouse says, but who won? And he says, we all won. And we all deserve a prize. And Alice shall be the one to give us prizes.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Alice.
Yeah. And she looks around in her pockets and apparently has some sort of like little box of candies that she's able to give one to every animal except herself.
Okay.
And the dodo says, oh, but my dear, you must also have a prize. What shall we do? And she looks in her other pocket and she has a thimble. And he says, okay, give that to me so I may present it to you. And
Alice, the Lilo and Stitch scene. Can I borrow $5 to pay for this?
And so the thimble is presented back to her, and in her head, her commentary is like, this is all ridiculous. Like, she's not having any of this. She's very fed up with this.
I feel like I would be the straight man in this adventure as well.
And eventually all the animals just kind of, like, get into their own thing, and Alice just finds herself in a house instead. Like, she's just...
As one
no
does.
longer in that scene.
All right.
So kind of more of that dream just skipping around, and it
ignoring
really
the travel
makes sense
stuff, yeah.
while you're in your dream.
Yeah.
So she ends up in this house, and suddenly she's grown and she's big again.
Okay.
And she kind of like keeps growing until her feet go out the door and her arms are sticking out the windows.
So now, she's wearing the house as a button.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, she is. And apparently this is the White Rabbit's house.
Oh, okay.
And he's looking around trying to find his gloves and his fan that he had dropped earlier.
Yeah.
And he can't get into the house because Alice is there.
Yeah.
And so he goes around, he has like a gardener and a chimney sweep, and they're all trying to help him get into the house. But for whatever reason, Alice doesn't want them in the house. And so every time they're like, okay, we'll put Bill the gardener down the chimney, and Bill is a lizard. So they shuffle him down the chimney.
I love Bill.
He's described as very stupid.
I love him. He's a himbo, and I will accept nothing else.
So he gets slithered down the chimney, and Alice, she knows this is happening, and she's like, well, I'm not gonna have any of this. I don't want a lizard in here with me. So she gets her foot, like, into the chimney, apparently, and right as he's about to, like, get on top of it, she, like, kicks him.
Oh,
and
no!
he explodes out of the chimney.
Poor Bill.
Which I'm all like, what did Bill ever do to you? Why'd you kick Bill?
Hashtag Bill did nothing wrong.
Exactly. And then it's described, he's, like, found over by a garden fence, and they all rush over to him, and they have to call a doctor. No. Like, Bill is not doing good.
Bill, no! I I hope you get a veterinarian, Bill.
I don't think he does. No. He comes back at the end of the story. I'll tell you more about Bill.
All right.
So she then decides, like, I can have nothing more of this. And conveniently, she's able to procure a bit of the cake, I think, that she had left over. Mm-hmm. And she eats some of it and shrinks up small again and goes rushing out of the house. And everyone who's there gathered around Bill, like, comes rushing over to her. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I haven't any time right now. And they don't really acknowledge, like, you were the big giant thing that killed Bill. Bill's not dead, but
okay.
She just rushes past and no harm comes to her and they don't pursue after her. She then finds herself wandering through this tall grass, so more vegetation, mm-hmm. and she comes across a mushroom that has a large blue caterpillar sitting upon it.
Okay.
And he is smoking his hookah pipe.
I love the caterpillar.
He is cantankerous.
He's, when he's voiced by Alan Rickman, it gives me love.
I don't remember who voices him in the cartoon, but I feel like in the cartoon he's really mad.
He's very angry in the cartoon.
Yeah, but in the Tim Burton he's not as angry. He's just more mysterious.
He's just high.
But in the book, so he goes in circles with Alice and he mm-hmm. says, who are you? And this whole time, Alice has been kind of like pondering herself and mm-hmm. she's like, I don't know who I am, because I thought I was me when I woke up, mm-hmm. but I might not actually be me. I might be somebody else. Mm-hmm. And the caterpillar's having nothing of this. He's like, you have to find who you are, my dear. They're all like very kind of my dear to her. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of to be like people talking down to her as a little child kind of thing. And
it's accidentally a coming of age story. Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. And Alice says something like, well, one day you're going to have to go into a chrysalis and you're going to have to become a butterfly. And who will you be then? He's like, I'll still be me. I'll just have transformed. Like, I know what's happening. I know
what's up.
I'm comfortable in my own skin.
God, I want to be the caterpillar.
And he just kind of gets fed up with her and just like hobbles on off. And then he, like, calls back to her. And this is where, in the cartoon, he gets real angry, and he's actually turned into a butterfly at that point. But he doesn't do that in the book.
Bye, I'm out.
But in the book, he just hollers back at her, like, one side will make you grow smaller, and the other side will make you grow larger. And in her head, she's like, one side of what? Why can't anyone be straightforward in this world? Like, she's getting fed up with everything.
That's fair.
Yeah, She's getting mad.
Yeah.
And as if the caterpillar had heard her, even though she said this in her head, he hollers back, of the mushroom, you dolt.
Of the mushroom, you dolt.
And Alice doesn't quite know what side is which of the mushroom.
Fair.
But she breaks off pieces. She apparently spreads her hands out on either side as far as they'll go and just breaks off pieces from each side and is like, better be good enough. And she just, like, tries and experiments and nibbles with both of them. The first time she tries, she goes way too big. And she gets put up, like, her head is in the treetops, basically. And her neck is really, really long.
She's like a giraffe.
Well, there's a robin that she encounters, and the robin calls her a serpent.
Oh. And that's an aggressively long neck.
Yeah.
Oof.
You're a serpent! And the robin says something like, you are here to eat my eggs, and all day and all night I've been pestered by the babies and the eggs, and now you're here to eat them, and I just have so much on my plate. Like, hashtag motherhood, I guess.
Okay.
This poor bird, she just wants to be left in peace, and she has all these problems to deal with. And Alice is like, I'm not a serpent, I'm a little girl. And the bird says, yes, but you've tasted eggs, haven't you? And Alice is like, true. Yeah, I have eaten eggs before. And so the bird says, so you're a serpent.
You know, that's fair.
Like, this bird is the epitome of Karen energy, I feel like.
Yeah.
She's, like, just takes one little thing and then, like, runs with it, like, accusatory.
Blows it out of proportion completely.
Yeah, like, I'd like to see your manager. You said you've eaten eggs. And Alice counters with, I don't want to eat your eggs. They're raw. And the bird apparently flies off in a huff of like, oh, so my eggs aren't good enough for you. Even though this whole time she was trying to protect them. Luckily, Alice is able to like maneuver her neck around to her hand somehow and get a little piece of the other side of the mushroom. She shrinks down to her right size. Totally fine. Perfect. She prowls on through the undergrowth and the brush and comes across the house. and she sees a frog footman talking to a fish footman, which I don't know how the fish is surviving or making it work, but he does.
Maybe he just does, like, the pour a water bottle over his gills every once in a while.
Maybe. But apparently the fish footman is delivering a letter to the Duchess from the Queen that she is to come play croquet.
Okay.
Then Alice watches for a little while longer, and the frog footman is described as, he sat stupidly on the stoop and stared into the sky.
How do you sit stupidly?
I don't know, but he was doing it. And so Alice goes up to him, and she knocks on the door, and he says, that'll do you no good, because I'm out here, so I can't let you in.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I guess it's fair.
And she says, okay, but can I just go inside? And he apparently stares stupidly back up at the sky again, and she says, well, maybe it's just the way his eyes are positioned, and he has no other choice, which...
Which way?
Yeah, I guess so, Alice, but you're still being very judgy.
Right?
So anyway, Alice just decides he's gonna sit in his stupid way on the porch, and she's gonna go inside. So she goes in and is in the kitchen of this house, and the Duchess is there with her baby who's crying, and there's a cook who apparently is cooking soup, and is using far too much pepper, and Alice says there's so much pepper in the air, and everyone is sneezing, and the cook is angry and throwing things at the Duchess and the baby.
Oh my.
And
that's aggressive.
The Duchess says, like, something to Alice of, like, what are you doing in here? You can't be here right now. I have to nurse this baby who's a pig. And she, like, yells at the baby, like, you're a pig. And the cook is throwing things and, like, narrowly hitting Alice with the frying pan. And eventually the Duchess says, you watch the baby, Alice, because I have to go get ready to meet with the Queen.
All right.
So Alice carries the baby, and she decides it'd be much safer for the baby to not be in the home anymore. So
yeah, I mean, with frying pans.
She acts as the child support team
Yeah.
and takes the baby away. And she keeps looking at it, and she's like, oh, baby, you mustn't snort so like a pig. And look, your nose is rather more upturned than it should be. It's very ugly. And look at your eyes. They've grown
insulting this baby.
Your eyes have grown so beady. And then she looks at it one more time, and she's like, oh, the baby actually is a pig now. And so she puts it on the ground and just wanders away.
Bye, baby.
Yeah.
Hope you find your dad.
Now, one character that I had neglected to mention in the Duchess's house was the cat, who was...
Oh, I was wondering where the Cheshire cat came from.
So the cat had been just sitting, like, on the on the fireplace, and, like, grinning at her, and that had been part of the conversation. Alice is like, why is your cat grinning? And the Duchess is like, he's a Cheshire cat, he always grins. And Alice is like,
that explains
okay,
it.
I've never seen a cat grin. I have my own cat, Dinah, and she starts talking about Dinah again. And in my head, I was thinking, like, it's literally every person who I tell I work with animals, and they tell me
everything
their
about
entire
their cat.
Life story about every animal they've had. I'm like, just, that's enough.
Right.
Stop.
Right.
So anyway, Alice then encounters the Cheshire Cat outside of the house now, and he like appears and reappears out of nowhere, but is always grinning. And he says, well, I always thought that the baby wouldn't grow up to be handsome at all, but he makes a very handsome pig. I'm glad he turned into a pig.
Okay, I heard that quote before, and I was wondering where that was.
It was the Cheshire Cat. And then Alice says, help, I need to go somewhere. And the Cheshire Cat says, well, where do you want to go? And Alice says, I don't know. Just tell me about the people around here. And
Right.
so the cat says, well, this way will be the Mad Hatter, and that way will be the March Hare. And Alice says, well, I don't want to go about mad people. And the Cheshire Cat says, we're all mad here. I'm mad, you're mad, or else you wouldn't have come here at all. Which is one of my favorite memes online, is the Cheshire Cat looking at Alice and says, we're all mad here. And Alice says, mad at me? Which is a whole other mood.
Yep, knowing you, yep. That makes so much sense.
So, but that's not the actual quote. That's, we're all mad here.
Yeah.
You're mad too.
Yeah.
So Alice decides, well, I've seen Hatters before. I know what that's like, so I'm going to go see the March
devil
Hare.
you know. Okay.
Yeah. So let's go see what this is. Whole shenanigans are.
Right.
She finds the March Hare in his garden with the Mad Hatter, so she didn't avoid that anyway.
We're gonna go there anyway.
And they also have the Dormouse, who is perpetually asleep, apparently.
Okay.
And in the Mad Hatter and the March Hare's world, it's always tea time because the Mad Hatter's clock doesn't work anymore.
Fair enough.
They've tried putting butter in the works, and it was the best butter, apparently. And it did nothing. It still is always 1:30, and so it's always tea time.
Is this why you like this book? Because it's always time for tea.
Yes. Part of the reason, of course. And Alice, like, gets very sassy with these two because the Mad Hatter's, like, looking at her, and he's like, your hair needs cutting. And she says, you shouldn't make personal remarks about people.
Says Alice, who's been making personal remarks about everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, like, kind of, she's finally coming into her own and, like, learning how to deal with these sassy, mad people.
Right, okay.
And then eventually, the Mad Hatter and the March Hare, they, like, march down the table, they, like, say nonsense to her, they sing nonsensical songs, and she's just, like, finally had enough of this, so she just, like, wanders out of the garden while they're singing still. And in the forest, in the trees, the vegetation, there's a door in one of the trees that she goes through, and she's back in the little alcove where that first door was that she wanted to get through.
Okay.
Where the garden was.
Yes,
through.
okay, with the cake and the potion.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, this time, she is armed with a plan. She grabs the key from the glass table. She puts it in her pocket. Then she takes the bit of the mushroom that makes her smaller. And she goes to the door, and she unlocks it. She eats the mushroom, and she's able to go through.
Nice.
She finally got it
learned,
right.
We problem solved.
Yes. And so she's in this beautiful garden, and it's so lush, and there's rose trees all over the place. And the first rose tree she comes to is surrounded by a few playing cards who look like they're dressed up as gardeners, and they're also painting the roses. And she says, what are you doing? Because obviously this is not standard for gardeners.
Right.
And they say, oh no, we've done the stupidest thing. We've planted a white rose tree, but they must be red. So we're painting them before Her Majesty comes for the croquet match. And before they're able to get the roses all painted, the queen comes marching in. The queen is like a queen from a playing card, and basically everyone is made of cardboard. No one's real.
Okay, she's the Queen of Hearts, right?
Yeah,
okay.
She's the Queen of Hearts. There's the King of Hearts there as well, and the Knave, and then, like, all the other cards are there. They're all her different guards.
Okay.
And she declares when she sees that the roses were white, being painted red, that the gardeners must be beheaded. Off with their heads.
Yes, okay. I was like, I wonder if this energy, because the Tim Burton, she's very into chopping people's heads off.
Yeah, she's very into that in the book as well.
Okay.
And basically the gardeners, they try and scatter, they run away, and all the other guards have to, like, go rushing after them. They hide behind Alice, and she, like, apparently rolls them up and puts them in a garden pot, so they're hidden.
Okay.
And everyone, like, can't find them. They go on, like, a little bit of a search, but they don't try too hard. And then they go back in formation with the queen, and she's like, are their heads gone? And they say, yes, your majesty, their heads are quite gone. And she says, all right, we must proceed on with the match then. So they set up the croquet, and Alice is invited to play as well. All of the cards are going to be the archways, and then there's hedgehogs for the little balls, and then the flamingos are the mallets that are going to hit the balls.
Okay.
And everyone is, like, obeying the queen, and, like, her flamingo is, like, doing a good job being a mallet. It's going to let itself hit the little hamster. No, not hamster. What'd I say? Hedgehog. Whereas Alice's flamingo, like, refuses to stay in a straight line, and her hedgehog keeps wandering away, and every time she's about to hit it through a card, it, like, gets up and moves away as well. And she also wonders where the Duchess is, who was invited to play, and apparently she's in jail for something, some sort of treason.
Okay. The Queen of Hearts seems to be very, like, quick to judge on that matter.
Yes, incredibly quick to judge. So Alice is just having a heck of a time here. It's difficult, by all means. And the Cheshire Cat appears.
Okay.
And he says, how are you getting on, my dear? Except he does it in, like, a nice way. It's not, like, a degrading way, but, like, an actual, hey, I came to check in on you.
How's it going?
Do you need my help, kind of thing? And Alice is like, oh, my goodness. It's rough. I can't even with these people. And he says, I hear ya. I get it. And then the king comes over, and he, like, looks at the Cheshire Cat, who, it's just his head who's appeared. It's not his whole body. And the king, like, looks at it and is like, what is this? I don't like the way it's looking at me. And the queen comes over, and she's like, off with his head.
Oh, that's quite impossible.
Right, and that's the debate, because they say, but we can't behead him because he doesn't have a body, and so there's nothing to behead him from. But then the queen says, but there is a head, so you can get rid of the head.
I guess.
So they have this huge debate, and then the Cheshire Cat disappears, and they're like, okay, let's go back on with the game. Oh, wait, no, I skipped a bit. Someone demands to know, like, well, what should we do about this cat? And Alice says, wait, I know, this is the Duchess's cat. Go get her from jail and ask her. So they haul the Duchess out, and, like, the Duchess, at that point, she's like, I don't know what to do with the cat. Why are you asking me? And she, like, grabs Alice, like, they
Typical cat owner, like, he just does what he wants.
Yeah, I can't control this beast. So she locks arms with Alice, and they just, like, kind of take a stroll through the garden, like, completely abandoning the game. And at this point, since the Duchess is no longer in the kitchen where the pepper was, her hot temper is much decreased, and she's, really nice, and she's like, so tell me, darling, like, how are you feeling? What's going on here? And just, like, really, really nice and polite.
She was just very overstimulated, I got you.
Yeah, she needed the calming of the garden, I guess. However, then the king comes over and is like, I'm sorry, we have to take you back to jail, and you have to come back and play the game. Sorry. And in the distance, while, like, Alice and the Duchess were wandering, they could, like, hear the queen, like, every time someone would hit her ball with another ball, she'd be like, off with their head, off with their head, until, like, everybody who was there is in custody, and the queen, like, storms off to get ready for something else, and the king, like, as he's leaving, he, like, says, everyone's pardoned, it's okay.
He's just used to this.
Yep.
This is my idiot, and I love her, I'm sorry.
So everyone's pardoned. And then they don't know what to do with Alice, because, like, she's just hanging out there, and, like, there's nothing to do for a while. So they say, well, why don't you go meet this guy named the Mock Turtle, and he'll tell you his history.
Okay.
So they go meet this guy named the Mock Turtle, and he says,
Is he a turtle?
He once was a real turtle.
Okay.
Now he's not.
He's a fake turtle. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking at the picture illustrations of him, he's like some sort of weird sheep wearing a turtle shell.
Oh my god, he is. Okay.
I don't know what he's really supposed to be at this point.
He's like a chimera at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
We never really get to the part of his history where he became a mock turtle, though.
Alright.
And this whole section, actually, the person who took Alice to see the mock turtle is a griffin.
Okay,
so
chimera things. Okay.
Yeah, so lots of different varieties of animals.
Alright.
And basically, the griffin and the mock turtle speak almost exclusively in puns. Because the mock turtle says, well, there was an elderly turtle who we called the tortoise. And Alice says, why'd you call him a tortoise if he was a turtle? And he says, we called him a tortoise because he taught us.
Okay.
And then they say something later of like, and all the fish, whenever they had to go on an adventure, they would always take a porpoise with them. And once a fish came to me and told me he was going on an adventure. And I said, well, what's your porpoise? And Alice says, don't you mean purpose?
Nope. Taking a dolphin with us. Let's go.
So it's just like pun city there. It's funny. And then in the distance they hear a bugle and someone says, the trial is starting, the trial is starting. So Alice has to be dragged off to the trial to see what that's all about.
Okay.
And they start the trial with saying, the knave of hearts, he stole some tarts all on a summer's day. So it's a trial to prove that the knave needs to be beheaded.
Okay.
All of the jurors...
At least there's trials with the wanton...
Well...
Oh no, okay. Oh no.
We'll get
Not
there.
great. Okay, got it.
So there is a jury, and it's full of a bunch of animals, and Alice says they were already scribbling away on their notepads, and she asks someone, I don't remember who she asked at this point, probably the king, I don't know.
There's a lot of characters here.
And she says, what are they already writing? And he says, they're writing their names so that they don't forget them during the trial.
Oh, Lord, okay.
And she looks around and she says, and one of the jurors was in fact Bill. So...
Oh, Bill!
So she could see the caliber that was happening there. She's really devious. She, like, gets behind Bill and steals his chalk. And he doesn't realize where it's gone. So he spends like a good 5 minutes looking around trying to find his chalk. Can't find it. And so he just uses his finger the whole time to like write things, except it's just his finger. There's like no ink. Yeah. So nothing is being written on his notepad. He's just scribbling with his finger the rest of this whole time. And then they like bring up all these different people. Like they bring the Mad Hatter in, and he still has his tea and a bit of toast with him. Yeah. And they say, "Where were you at this time?" And he says, "I was having tea, like I always am."
I'm literally always in this one location.
Literally always tea time. And so they kind of get in like a battle of wits about that, and then he finally is like, "Can I go home now?" And they're like, "Yeah, fine, go back and have your tea." So he leaves. And then they call Alice to the stand, and at all this time she had been having this strange feeling that she had been growing bigger and bigger. Oh, no. And in fact she had been. So by the time she gets up to like stand up to like go to the stand, she's so big that she knocks over like all the jurors' desks, and the king looks very sternly at her and says, "We will not proceed with the trial until all the jurors are placed back in their proper locations," which she had been like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," trying to like put everyone back as quickly as possible. She put Bill in upside down. So he was just sitting there.
This poor lizard.
His poor tail like wriggling back and forth, and like Alice has to go back and like put him back right side up before she can go back and do her trial. And the king says, "So what do you know about this? What evidence do you have?" And she says, "I know nothing about this. And look, the tarts are right there." And she points at the evidence, and there are the tarts. All of them are there. And she's like, "And you're nothing but a stack of playing cards, so I don't have to listen to you, and I'm much bigger than you." And all of the cards, like all the guard cards, they like jump down from the balconies and like flood her with like what we probably would assume would be paper cuts. But then she wakes up laying in her sister's lap, and her sister was brushing some leaves that had fallen from a tree off of her poor little head. And Alice apparently recounts this whole dream to the sister. And her sister muses like, "Oh, how wonderful to dream such fantastical dreams. And one day she too will be grown, and she'll look back on this, and she'll tell the tale to her children, and it will be wonderful." And that's how Alice in Wonderland ends.
I didn't know that's how it ended.
That's how it ends.
You're about to get murdered by some playing cards. All right, I'm up now.
It's fine. So yeah, that's how it ends. I didn't actually get to Through the Looking Glass. There's a little bit more vegetation in there. Like they go through the chessboard desert, I believe, or something. But anyway, yeah. I encourage the read of that one if you're interested. Or maybe I'll bring it for something else. Yeah.
I'm into it.
Yeah. So anyway.
That was a wild ride.
It was.
I recognize like pieces of it from like other things, like where they pulled inspiration. Yeah. Like the Drink Me is very common and stuff.
Yeah. It's definitely been like people took the archetypes and made it their own.
Yeah. Which is fair. It's a dream setting. You can kind of do what you want.
Yeah. And there's not much of a plot to it, in all honesty.
It's like that. I think it's like nonsense literature or something. Like there's a couple of writers, and Lewis Carroll was one of them, where they just kind of spew out words until they're done.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, Through the Looking Glass, some, I guess, more vegetation real quick. That's where like the garden with the live flowers comes in.
Okay, yeah.
That's really prevalent in the movie.
Yeah.
With the flowers, the faces, but fortunately it's not in this one.
Okay, it's more in the Looking Glass. Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah.
Wonderful. Fantastical.
Do you want my quote again?
I would love your quote again.
Okay. Take it from the fantastical to the depressing.
To the depressing. We're back to the sad.
Going up that river was like traveling back to the earliest beginnings of the world, when vegetation rioted on the earth and the big trees were kings. An empty stream, a great silence, an impenetrable forest. The air was warm, thick, heavy, sluggish. There was no joy in the brilliance of sunshine.
So this, oh god, like the creepy forest in the Nile, right? Like the Heart of Darkness?
Yes!
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you got it!
Yeah, I was like, they're always on a river and it's sad the entire time.
I was like really close to bringing it as my actual thing, but then I couldn't remember all of it, and I didn't have my copy of it here, so I couldn't read it, and I didn't want to be depressed.
That's fair. I just remember being like, this book is so long and sad.
Yeah. Yeah, you got it. I'm so proud of you.
I'm so proud of me too.
Look at us being good literature students.
I did remember something from my AP Lit class.
Cool.
All right. Well, that's it for Vegetation. I think that was some pretty good, solid plot analysis of Alice in Wonderland. I might actually read it now because it feels like a trip. Generator, would you like to roll us the next word, please?
The next word is coast.
Coast. Like coasting down the hill.
Or like a
Coasting
shore?
to a stop.
Here you go.
I guess, yeah, like a shore.
That was my first thought, but I guess that works too. There's probably many definitions of coast, which we'll get into.
Roller coaster?
Ooh, there you go. All right. I dig it. Many definitions, so I guess I'll have to tune in to see where our brains go for coast for our next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our wild plot synopsises, or we gave you a sensible chuckle, feel free to share with a friend so we can continue to grow as a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're at the end of the episode, so
So we're just gonna stop now.
we're gonna stop now, and I'm gonna end this like I always do. I've been Stephanie.
And I've been Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week. And remember, we're still not a pyramid scheme.
We never have been.
The whole time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.